Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kat and today I am so excited to do a wrap-up video for you. So if you have seen the video I posted a little while ago, I am trying to find Captive Prince dupes. The series is the Captive Prince trilogy by C.S. Pacat. That is the OG, the ultimate, the gold star standard. And these are books that have been recommended on the internet. I chose 5 and I read them throughout my other reading, and now I have 5 to wrap up for you. So I'm going to talk about the books as their own thing and also how they compare to the Captive Prince elements. So first up is Zercy by Kora Knight. This was recommended a lot on the subreddits I was on. This is a sci-fi MM romance. So let's talk about the plot, shall we? So this is about Alec, who is an intergalactic ship captain, and his ship crashes on an uncharted planet where the Kree live. Kree are tall, purple-horned, have fangs. They're hypersexual, MM-only society aliens. So Alec and his team are captured and brought to the palace where the king puts them under his protection, essentially keeping them kind of because they'll die on the planet otherwise, and they also have no means of getting home right now. However, the king, named Zercy, takes a particular interest in Alec, who's the captain. And as Zercy is trying to get closer and closer to Alec, Alec is torn because he's human, he's not normally attracted to men, and he is super loyal and puts his team before himself every time. So I'm looking at my reviews and it says some of the tropes here are captive pet, forced proximity, touch him and die, slow burn, gay for you, size difference, bonds, mate bite, and berserker mode when mate is in trouble. Some of the stuff in here that was really awesome is that there is amazing world building about their, I guess, technology, but it's nature infused technology where roots and plants and elements of the earth give them like data and perform feats of what we would call magic to help their people. So overall, I thought that this was really, really good. I gave it 4.25 stars. I stayed up all night reading this until 4 a.m. And then my notes say, next in the series is out fall 2023. Thank fuck. So this was nearly 600 pages and I absolutely ripped through it. This was recommended by Catherine Norderlin from Norway. Thank you so much. It was great. And I would say the reason it's 4.25, not higher, is because there's another point of view, which I won't get into, but it's less exciting and dragged a bit, as well as this wasn't as dark or gritty as Captive Prince. So speaking of, let's talk about the Captive Prince crowns of Zercy. So it obviously has the captive element. He's like the pet to the king. It has MM. They are physically equal. Definitely Zercy is stronger, but they're both very strong. They are equally intelligent, absolutely, and they're closed/open. So the king is very closed off at first, and he seems haunted, which the captain is drawn to. The element it didn't have was an outer power imbalance, so the king just wants to keep them so that they don't die on the planet, and he also thinks the captain is hot and unique, so there's not really that outer power imbalance, as well as they're not enemies and they don't hate each other. From the beginning, the captain's like, oh, the king's kind of hot. And like, he's such an affable captain, like he's willing to do whatever it takes for his team, that he doesn't like really hate Zercy. He's just kind of annoyed, if that makes sense. He's annoyed. And then icy hot. Zercy isn't cold enough and the captain isn't hot enough, like doesn't burn hot enough. So This gets 5 Captive Prince stars out of 8, which is still really good. And this is a strong book on its own. And I will just mention, I'm pretty sure at the end of this book, it says it was inspired by Captive Prince. And there are some certain elements, especially like the way that the court is set up and some of the stuff that they have the pets do at the court, was giving major Captive Prince vibes about specific plot points. So yes, 5 Captive Prince crown, and I do recommend this one as a dupe. It doesn't reach Captive Prince level, of course, but I do recommend it as a dupe. All right, next up. So let's talk about the second book today. This is Under His Heel by Adara Wolf, which is a straight up sci-fi romance. This is MM, and it has 2 main characters, Alex, who has basically made bad choices because his brother constantly tricks him into taking the fall, and the other main character is Captain Trecht, who is well-connected, respected, and a ship captain. So, Alex gets caught doing something illegal, and he is put into basically indentured servitude, where they're given a collar, and their servitude can be bought by anyone who pays for it, basically, and they basically have to do whatever their owner says. So they're given the chance. They can go to prison or they can be an indentured servant, and it can be paid off faster. So Alex becomes Captain Trecht's captive. And the thing about Captain Trecht is that it's no secret that he is into dominance and submission. So this story does have BDSM elements, but they are super fictionalized and I think like pretty damaging. We'll get into that a bit later. One of the things that the captain loves is that Alex does not give in to him readily. He is not like a natural submissive person. He's actually like this huge bruiser of a guy. And a lot of people can't understand the captain's choice, but it's that exact perversion, like wanting someone who's naturally such a fighter to like bow to him and do what he wants. That is what the captain likes. So I read this entire series. There are 4 books in the series that I read. They're pretty short, so I read them over a few days. And I have really mixed feelings about this one because of some of the elements, and I will get into it now. So, obviously there is the captive element. He's an indentured servant. It is MM. There is an outer power imbalance because it's not the captain that is making the situation. It's the indentured servant system, the collaring system that society has. So that is the outer layer, and then the inner layer is like the BDSM elements and their personal elements. So it does have that. It is enemies or hate first. It's absolutely hate first. Like the Alex hates the things that the captain wants him to do, and he often fights back. Like I would say the whole first, second, even third book out of 4, he's absolutely like, F this, F you, like trying to get out of things, trying to find loopholes, like constantly fighting back physically and like strategically. And it also does have icy hot and closed open. So the captain is super icy, like Ice King. And obviously Alex is just a hothead, absolute hothead, like to the max, like to the point where he doesn't think, he just does. And then closed open, same thing. Alex will explode and talk about things, and whereas the captain is very closed and doesn't share a lot of information that like to anyone. The ones that it doesn't have, they're not physically equal. For instance, the Alex, who is the servant, he is physically huge and like an excellent fighter. Whereas Captain Trecht is like a slim guy. His power is all through like BDSM submission. So they're physically not that equal. But the main thing that this doesn't have is equally intelligent, and this is the sticking point and why I actually didn't overall like the series. So in the beginning, you think it's going to be a normal like BDSM type relationship, obviously highly fictionalized, it's not real, etc., etc. But as the books go on, the captain explicitly says that he has mentally broken down Alex to the point that he can't think for himself, and basically he's taken away his ability to think about consent, and he will just do whatever the captain wants. And this is also explained that Alex is kind of a dum-dum because his brother also tricks him all the time into taking the fall, into doing stupid plans, into trying to steal stuff that like shouldn't be stolen from people who are very powerful. So this I'm actually giving a -1/2 because this element was really unsavory for me personally. I did not like that Alex was so portrayed as a dum-dum, and it really felt wrong that Tract would use that and manipulate that in like this BDSM, I'm gonna keep him forever in this mindfuck kind of concept. So overall, I gave the books 3.75 stars as a book series on its own, but Captive Prince stars, I gave it 5. 6 minus 1. Okay, let's talk about book number 3 today, which is A Knife and a Blade by Adelaide Blaike. This was recommended by my subscriber, Snow Hunt. Thank you so much. This was really, really good. And I'm just gonna say I gave this 4.5 stars. What a banger. And I will be reading on in the series. Just haven't had time, but still wanted to recommend and talk about this. So, this is dealing with Prince Renato, who wants to save his country from foreign occupation, so he steals and kidnaps in order to leverage their freedom, but instead of kidnapping the enemy's princess, he ends up kidnapping the handsome son of the enemy's general. So he basically is keeping this political prisoner until the countries can make a deal. So let's talk about the elements that it had. So there was the captive element because the prince is keeping Matthias basically political prisoner, but also he has to keep him safe from people in the court and people in his own country who would do harm to the young man. There is MM, obviously. So they are both physically equal. They are both fighters of equal like level, as well as members of noble families that would have been like classically trained. There is an outer power imbalance. While the prince is keeping Matthias close for his own protection, there is also this element of like people in his own country he can't trust, and then people in the enemy country he can't trust, and people really close to him in the court that he can't even trust. So in that regard, it is very similar to Captive Prince. This also has the fact that they're equally intelligent. So the prince is manipulative and trying to save his people, whereas Matthias has a lot of secrets and he's trying to get his way while not being obvious. So they're both pretty like devious strategic thinkers. Enemies to hate first. Oh buddy, do they not like each other. So this starts off, they are not nice and really not good. The prince puts him at first in like the servants' quarters. He gets beat up, like really badly beat up. So then he's like, fuck, okay, Matthias, you can stay in my quarters. So again, there's that like forced proximity where it's in that person's own quarters for protection. I mean, it is for protection, but it's a trope we all love to see. But they hate each other at first. It is not good, but it is delicious. And it is icy hot, where the prince is so icy, that like Matthias will ask him something and he literally will not answer him. He'll literally just not answer him at all. And closed open, obviously. The prince is dealing with a lot of things going on in his world that he just does not talk about at all. In his history, he doesn't talk about anything about himself he doesn't like to talk about. He just like gives the littlest breadcrumbs to Matthias over time. And Matthias is more open, but he has his secrets of his own. So this gets 8 Captive Prince crowns out of 8 Captive Prince crowns. This was phenomenal, and it is one of my favorite romances of the year so far. It's really, 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 really good, and I highly recommend it if you're looking for a Captive Prince dupe. Okay, next let's talk about book number 4. This is Just a Bit Ruthless by Alessandra Hazard. So this is dealing with 2 men, obviously. One is Luke, who is a hopeless romantic. His dad kind of sees him as a fuck up. And when his dad gets an email, Luke decides to go on his own to this meeting to prove to his dad that he can do it. However, no, he's kidnapped by Roman, who is a cynical billionaire who has a grudge against Luke's father. So he basically kidnaps this kid, Luke. He's not a kid. He kidnaps this young man, Luke, and holds him captive, like at his compound. And the thing is that the guards rough him up a bit, and then of course he's like, okay, fine, you can stay in the room next to my room, forced proximity for your own protection. And he kind of like keeps an eye on him while talking to Luke's father. So, what can I say about this one other than that, like, at first glance, it seems like it would really be a close match for Captive Prince, but surprisingly no, because while there is a captive element, obviously, and it's MM, they're not physically equal. So immediately, like, Luke is like this sweet honey puff of a man who doesn't have any fighting training, like, at all, like nothing. So they're physically not equal. There's also not an outer power imbalance. It's just like the beef that the Roman has with Luke's father. They are not equally intelligent, maybe in different ways, but not strategically, not anything. Like I said, like Luke is so sweet honey puff that like when bad things happen, he, instead of trying to be strategic or trying to get away, he more is like, what's happening? Like, oh no. So it doesn't give like the tension, it just makes you feel bad for him. Like that poor little honey puff who's being kept captive by like this mafia guy. It's not enemies or hate first either. Like kind of, but it's one-sided hate, right? Roman doesn't like him because of his father, but Luke is such a nice kid that he doesn't hate really anyone. Like there's no strong lasting hatred or anything. He's more just scared out of his mind. Icy hot again. The billionaire is icy, but Luke is just sweet. So it's not even, yeah, he's just sweet. So you can't really have that clash when one is so overpowered in every aspect, like physically strong, smart, icy, and the other one's just like, happy, I'm just a sweet little cinnamon bun. And closed open, I will say, is there. So obviously like Luke is very open and wants to talk about feelings, and then Roman, who is the billionaire, is like, absolutely not. And he is very closed off. So this does not get many Captive Prince crowns. It only gets 3 crowns. And I will say as a book, I gave it 3.75 because for a book with Ruthless in the title, you think that the cold, manipulative billionaire would actually be shown to be really ruthless. But really there isn't much ruthlessness or violence on page at all. Like you just hear about it, you don't see it. So the book overall wasn't that like dark for me personally. I think my dark meter is like goes way, way, way dark. So this wasn't even bad at all. So when it says just a bit ruthless, it means like just this much ruthless, only that much. Yeah, so I was like, okay, I'll give Alessandra Hazard one more try. So I saw another one that looked maybe similar to Captive Prince, and I was like, okay, I'll give it a go. So I read Just a Bit Heartless by Alessandra Hazard, which also has captive elements in his MM, which is what drew me in. So this one deals with Jordan, who is asked by his boss to pretend to be his boyfriend when he goes on a family trip to Italy. So as you can guess, his boss's family is like the Italian mafia, and he's worried that someone would actually kill his boyfriend if he brought him for real. So he asks Jordan, who looks similar to his boyfriend, to pretend to be his boyfriend. And while he's there, the person that is number one on the list for might want to kill the boyfriend is kind of the unofficial leader and the most ruthless killer in this mafia family, who's Damiano Conte. So Damiano is known as a sociopath with no capacity for real emotion. He's like icy and cruel, and he's known to like kill people. So basically the family vacation turns violent when both Damiano and Jordan are kidnapped and held captive. So this one, again, started out so promising, but did not do it for me in the end. So let's talk about it. It obviously has the captive element, although surprise, they're both a captive. It's MM. They're not physically equal. I think Jordan is like a tech guy, if I'm not mistaken, and then there's like the sociopath mafia guy who's like super good at killing people. So not physically equal at all. Outer power imbalance, no, not really, because it's just a mafia story. So they're just in that world. There's not like another force that's forcing it. Equally intelligent, they are definitely. Damiano is very calculating, very manipulative, whereas Jordan actually has an eye for getting what he wants by just like sheer force, just by listening to his emotions and doing what he thinks is right in the moment. But I will say they do feel equally intelligent. Enemies to hate first, I'm gonna say no, because from the very beginning, Jordan, who's just pretending to be the boyfriend, is secretly like, damn, Damiano is a hot piece of ass. So in his mind, like, he already kind of likes him. But Icy Hot and Closed Open definitely has it. So Jordan isn't as fluffy teddy bear as the guy from the previous story, but he is obviously open with his emotions compared to the completely closed off box that is the sociopath Damiano. And he does run hotter. So when they're kidnapped, he like is fighting and he's like, hey, like let us out of here, like give us medicine, blah, blah, blah. Whereas Damiano's kind of colder, assessing, taking the beatings, and so on. But again, in the end, it just wasn't as dark as I wanted overall. It didn't get gritty enough for me. So I gave the book overall 3.75 as well. So it does have 5 Captive Prince stars, but it's not close enough that I would like recommend it as a Captive Prince dupe. But as a book, it's pretty good. So if I had to recommend ones that are dupe-ish, I would definitely say A Knife and a Blade and Zercy did help satisfy that itch just for a little bit. I personally can't wait to read on in A Knife and a Blade. I'm really looking forward to it, and I will let you know when I do. So that is it for this video. It's hella long, I can see that. Oops. I will chat to you in another video soon. Lots of love. Bye.